go to 2012, around 2015. That's when Disney had bought Lucasfilm and decided they were going to try to finally finish the saga with episodes 7, 8, and 9, plus a wide variety of anthology movies and now the Disney streaming shows. So we made a pact before we did this episode that we're not going to try to get into fandom menace stuff. We're not going to go and talk about the fan hate because obviously you can find it anywhere online.
There will be
And
no Star Wars slander on my part.
That's
yeah,
right, Xavier.
plus we all have a wide variety of opinions. We don't want to turn this into ESPN First Take. But let's talk about the merchandising for this movie. Now, I didn't collect any of these figures, but I remember when The Force Awakens came out, and the hype was obviously much bigger than for Phantom Menace,
Right.
because this was 30 years after Jedi. Everybody wanted to see where our characters were going to be 30 years after the fact. And because there's so much unknown, it's not like the prequels where you knew Anakin Skywalker was going to
Right,
become Darth Vader.
right.
Now it's like a whole new story. And obviously the Force Friday that they did at Toys R Us all around the country, around the world, was insane. All the merchandise that they put out, nobody, it didn't matter who these characters were, they were going to buy figures. They wanted to see what was happening. They wanted Kylo Ren with that lightsaber. And they were pretty smart to kind of keep spoilers to a bare minimum, particularly with Rey
Yeah,
and how important she was going to be for this trilogy. So, for you guys, what were your thoughts when this trilogy first started?
I was ecstatic. I was, this was now the first time that I was like a huge fan that these movies were, new movies are coming out in theaters. They re-released Phantom Menace in 3D, and I went to go see that, and that's like as crazy as it sounds. It's the first Star Wars movie I ever got to see in the movie theater. So now my fandom is at its highest, and now they're coming out with a new story. I'm all in. I couldn't wait. Seeing the figures and stuff like that got me even more excited, and it made me realize, all right, this is it. Like this is gonna be this might be my trilogy more than anything else. Like I can lay claim to this because this is the one where I'm gonna be, I'm probably the most invested.
Yeah, you're gonna actually live through it.
Right.
Aside from the prequel trilogies, but you were probably in a different headspace being in high school at the time.
Right, and I wasn't really all about it. I wasn't really into it that much. Like I was like,
Well,
oh,
again,
it's
it's a
cool.
lot of politics.
Right,
So, but
but
it did have some cool characters like General Grievous and Darth Maul. Those are pretty cool characters
and
and figures.
right, and by that same point, and we talked about this before. Episode 3 is my favorite Star Wars film ever.
Yeah,
So,
it's definitely there for me too.
and just that lightsaber duel at the end is just, God, just like one of the best fight scenes in the
You are
history.
the chosen one.
You are my brother, Anakin.
Kill younglings.
But that was like, oh man, that was like everything to me. So now with these new films coming out, I couldn't wait.
Yeah, I guess for me, as far as the last trilogy, being a parent, it's kind of a different outlook on it because now I get to enjoy it with my children as well, and like hopefully bring them into the fandom. Um, you both know a mutual friend, Mike Schiavo.
Yes.
So one of my son's birthdays, he came to my house dressed as Darth Vader for my son's birthday party.
That's so cool.
So like around the time when The Force Awakens came out. Yeah, but like I don't know when it really started, but like at some point I just made it an annual thing to watch the movies in December and just rewatch them every year. And as like when the new one came out, like when I saw this new droid BB-8, I thought like, oh, that would be pretty cool like as a figure, like if it was like remote controlled. And lo and behold, they came out with one where
Oh
you
my
can
God.
control from your phone.
Yes.
And then maybe like 6 months later, they actually came out with like a wristwatch thing that controlled him. So it's like you're using the force to control the BB-8. I still have it at home. It's in my son's room, but like it's still an awesome figure to have.
Yeah. I mean, the technology that they've come out with, like, and we talk about cash cows, like R2D. They have like R2D2 like rolling refrigerators.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like these things that they come out with are.
they just came out with a R2D2 popcorn maker.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I said somebody should hack it and make it a projector. to watch the movies.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Genius, absolutely genius.
Hello.
Yeah, but you know that, and that's the thing. I mean, my hype was at an all time high at that point. What about you? I mean, I got to think that
I
you had
was
some mixed feelings.
I was mixed because I just felt that first of all my favorite actors they're up there in age,
Yeah,
and it was just hard to see how they could do it justice, especially if George Lucas wasn't involved. And I felt like you're going to do all these spin-off movies, then now you're going to try to overexpose it. Are we going to go past episode 9 and continue this saga? I mean, look, everybody has an opinion about how they've handled it, whether there was a trilogy plan or not. Um, whatever politics that there are behind the scenes with Lucasfilm and how they've handled these movies. I think it's been there's there's obviously things to knock. There's things to criticize, but let's try to focus on the positives here. We're going back to real sets, real creatures,
yeah.
real puppeteering work, like the character that they had in Rise of Skywalker. Um, I'm blanking on the name, the little Russian thing that
Oh,
deprograms
Babu
C3.
Frick.
Babu Frick.
Yeah.
I love Babu Frick.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like close to like the old school Muppets,
Yes, absolutely.
I think
So
that's why people love Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
yeah, and say what you will about how Luke was handled in Last Jedi. I think from a performance perspective, Mark Hamill should have been nominated for an Oscar.
I agree.
I'm probably gonna get shit for
You're
this, but
not
I
getting.
feel like that was his Unforgiven moment.
Nobody's arguing with you in this room.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I'll get out of the way. I don't care. I love the Last Jedi.
So do I.
Yeah, I don't
So
care.
do I.
Yeah, it is what it is. I know a lot of people had problems with it, but go back and rewatch it now after you've seen Rise of Skywalker, and tell me that it's not a much better movie than you thought it
I
was
think
previously.
that's a big problem that people had these preconceived notions before letting the trilogy finish. That made their judgment, a little, abrasive at the time.
But I think that speaks to who we are now as a culture, and
You have to be patient.
it gets in with the toys too, because we're sitting there and we're googling every
Well,
every other day.
It's instant gratification.
Right. Yeah. What's the next Star Wars set that's coming out? Who's
Right.
going to be in the next release? Like, we didn't know that as a kid. We never knew that. We would go down the aisle of a toy store and just be like, "Oh my God, a new Star Wars series just released!" Like,
See, I'll give you an example from me myself. So I guess because of my age at the time, I didn't watch the cartoons of the Clone Wars and Rebels. So watching The Mandalorian now as an adult, and spoiler alert, if you have you watched it?
yeah,
You watched the whole
yeah,
thing. Okay. So spoiler alert, if you haven't finished The Mandalorian, at the end of the episode 8, you see the dark saber. I
right,
had no idea what it was. I go into the rabbit hole. I find out more. Now I want to watch the Clone Wars.
right, right. And that's the way that look, Disney's not stupid. They know that in order, like, all right, so the only way to see the Mandalorian was to get Disney Plus. So all right, you're a Wars fan, you're investing in it. Now if you're somebody like you who hasn't seen the Clone Wars, I never finished them. I saw the two like hour and a half long specials that they have. I own them. But I never saw the entire Clone Wars series. I gotta go back and watch that
Well,
now.
I feel like that's what they were intending to
Right,
have it happen because they know they're coming out with 14 more episodes in February.
right. So now go back and watch that. You want the backstory of
Yeah.
it? You want the lore? Go back and watch that.
Is see, like, my theory, a mutual friend of ours, Andrew Edwards,
Mhm.
he watched the Clone Wars cartoon, and he was telling me about a character, Bo-Katan,
Yes,
who was the last one to have the dark saber. Now I was like, well, wouldn't it be dope if the armorer in the Mandalorian turns out to be her?
that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. With the Star Wars universe, there's so much stuff that we can delve into now that like things are canon, things aren't canon. What's this? What's that? We talked about the idea of, and this kind of bleeds into another series of figures which I thought were absolutely fantastic. Rogue One.
Yeah.
What a
They
great
released
movie!
such a great movie, just overall great movie and a great Star Wars movie at that. But with Rogue One, it was okay. We don't know. We know that Star Wars starts with "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope." How did we get there?
Right.
So now we have this whole backstory of how we got there, and now we released the figures for it, and they were great. Such a great series of figures that they released for them, and it really enhanced the movie for me.
I
Because
yeah, I love the Donnie Yen character,
yes,
Chirrut Imwe. That I've seen that figure before, and it looks just like him
it
too.
really does. They all look like so great. I have
Jin.
not Jin.
Cassian Endor.
Yeah, thank you. For some reason, Cassian Andor's name always slips my mind. But I bought Cassian Andor. Uh, I bought actually the Danny Yen character. I bought his partner, the big dude. I bought like a couple of them, and I just saw them in the stores. I was like, these are way too cool to pass up. And it was before I even saw the film. I was like, all right, these guys look cool. These are the ones I'm gonna get, and then go back and I'll get more. And I do have Jin. I wound up buying Jin at Five Below once I had saw it. But that's the other thing. Like I saw the film and I was like, okay, now I got to go back and get the rest of these because this may be one of my favorite Star Wars films of all time. And that's the great thing about the idea of Disney. You brought up the idea of maybe them overexposing. I don't think they overexpose Star Wars. I think that they've given us the answers to all the questions that as Star Wars fans we've asked. And it's not even that. It's like the Bloodline series book that they came out with before we got episode what we now know now is episode 7. It's the idea of okay, what happened? What were Han and Leia doing in between? And if you go back and read the whole Bloodline book, it's unbelievable because now we're getting filled in as to what went on in between
Right,
that
fills the
story. And
gaps.
I really want I want toys from that too. I know that those people don't exist, but make me a series with that book and give me some toys with that too.
So that leads me to the challenge that the franchise has at this moment, which is like now we're in a new generation where we've seen Toys R Us go under. We've seen this whole situation now where, regardless of how anybody feels about The Last Jedi, we've seen those reports about how the merchandise has to be capped in
Right.
certain stores like Target and Walmart because they're not moving as much as they'd like. They blame it on the quality of the movie. They blame it on, the characters maybe not being as exciting. Maybe nobody wants to keep buying variants of past characters. And I could see all those points. At the same time, you got The Mandalorian, which totally proved that the franchise isn't dead by any
Yeah,
means.
nowhere near.
And if anything, it breathed new life into it through not only the title character, but Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
And it shocks me that they didn't think it through that motherfuckers this motherfucker's gonna sell.
Yeah. The second so I mean, look, I went into the Mandalorian watching the first episode. I think it was like the day after Disney Plus launched. I watched the first one and I was like, all right, let's see what this is. And the second I saw that Baby Yoda on my screen, I went, that's it. That's it. The entire
They
world is
got me.
yep, the entire world's over. This is what I'm invested now, and I want every single piece of Baby Yoda merchandise I can get my hands on because it's adorable.
Yeah, I mean, it could probably bring peace on Earth one of these days.
Yeah,
It's almost like the first day Pokemon Go came out. That was like when the world was at its happiest.
yeah,
Like everyone loved it. I mean, I see a lot of people saying like they don't see the appeal of the Baby Yoda. Maybe they're just not into Star Wars like that.
yeah,
But even like general fans who've not even like big fans of the whole trilogy are like obsessed with this thing.
yeah.
Now, spoiler alert, I'm just gonna make this as an example. The last episode that played, just that first scene where the two
I'll kill that
bikers start,
motherfucker.
yeah,
Jason Sudeikis, I'll kill
yeah,
you.
yeah,
when
yeah.
they're knocking the Baby Yoda around like that, there was some extreme reactions
Yeah,
online.
I think he's got some death threats.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. I'm
Like,
sure he did.
yo,
Like, and everybody was like, "Who was that under that mask?" And yeah,
But you
then
know
we
what? You
found
could
out.
say the same thing about Rise of Skywalker with Babu Frick. Like
Yeah,
people seem to really gravitate towards that character like right away.
and the funny thing about Babu Frick is, I mean, depending on how true these Reddit things have come out, and again, I'm not gonna get too deep into all that stuff, but there was one thing that said that the Disney execs thought it was going to be another Jar Jar Binks that they wanted to cut out, and they were shocked when everybody fell in love with that character.
I mean, I think there's something to be said about. I don't know what it is, but small characters just seem to capture the imagination of everybody. I mean, like let's look at Guardians of the Galaxy. Like in the original movie, like Groot was like,
Right.
oh, Groot's so cool. But man, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Baby Groot, everybody is
Everybody wanted a
all
baby Groot.
about it.
Yes.
And like you want peace on Earth, just Yoda, Baby Yoda for president, Baby Groot as his vice president. That's it.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
Not to stray too far away from where we are now, but like, did Jar Jar Binks really do anything to the movie to hurt it?
I don't hate Jar Jar Binks as much as everybody else does. I don't love him, but
it's probably just a character that's there to appeal to the children.
That was the intent.
That are going
exactly
to
what it was.
And I don't know if you guys heard, but they're supposed to be making a game show for Disney Plus with Jar Jar Binks as the host.
I'm so down for that.
Like I was reading something to prepare for this. The actor that played Jar Jar Binks like contemplated suicide because of
I was going to mention
the
that,
hate that he was getting.
Right.
Like even Daisy Ridley removed herself from social media from like she was getting flack when The Force Awakens came out. Like
Kelly Marie Tran.
Well, that's thing. Most recent.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
But like the Rose character, for me, like I don't think you really needed her. She was more of a support character for Finn.
Sure.
But like people were saying like they were mad that she didn't get enough screen time in the new movie, and like I don't know that not to be negative, I don't know that she was really bringing anything in the first place.
Right.
For me.
Right, and that's the thing, for her to get all that hate, for people to be so divisive over it, and for people to be divisive for stupid reasons too. A lot of the hate that she got, they were like, oh, well, this means if Finn's got a girlfriend that we can't, ship Finn and Poe and be like this big gay couple in the Star Wars universe.
Which I would have been okay with, by the way.
Look, I don't care either way. But my thing was, first of all, I thought that we were going to just, get a little bit more of a rehash, and it was going to be Poe and Rey at the end. We're going to wind up getting together. I just didn't see Finn and Rey's relationship like that at all.
I honestly...
And I didn't see Finn and Poe's relationship as that at all. And I liked that they introduced Rose because it gave Finn a little bit more levity, and it gave him like a little bit more of it made him look a little bit more vulnerable because in that movie in the first one he grows up just so fast. It's
I'm totally fine with the way the recent trilogy played out, but when Force Awakens came out, like with their first trailers and everything, I was almost convinced that Finn was gonna be the main character.
They did fool you with
and
that.
then it turns out to be Rey in the end.
And I like that because it's
but
different.
like I think about it, like he still got his character arc because he's still a former stormtrooper that is a hero. He's like, if you see what he does in the last movie too, like
almost sacrifices his life for the good of the Rebel Alliance. And I mean that's a crazy thing to think about because in the first film he we're in that cantina with Han, he almost bails on everybody.
Right.
And it's a great redemption story that now not only does he become that, Poe appoints him as a general, and he's now, you know what I mean?
He's literally a character with no name.
Yeah.
Poe gives him the name.
Yeah.
Because he's FNN
N88.
Yeah. 1827.
Yeah, or whatever. Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah,
Now he has an identity.
But you know what? There was one slip up with the spoiler in The Force Awakens, as I remember when it was coming out. So I think there was a Twitter thing where they had one of those brief 30-second trailers, and it had just before the lightsaber fight with Finn and Kylo Ren, where everybody thought, okay, he's got the lightsaber, so he's got to be the main character. But they forget there was an advertisement for Walmart because they were doing a tie-in with Star Wars, and there was a girl dressed up like Rey who was doing some force,
I remember that.
lifting up a box or something. And I said, aha, they're going to trick us. It's a red herring.
Yeah, which is great, and I loved it, and it was a good idea.
You know what, though? Either way you look at it, I like that there's representation for everybody in these movies. Like, if Finn was the main character and he's black, and young black kids like him, that's great. Rey ends up being the main character hero. I would love if my daughter wanted to be her when she grows up.
Right.
Yeah. Well, on a personal note, my cousin who used to do makeup for my films is actually somewhat a close friend of John Boyega's.
Right.
I mean, they don't talk as much now, but at the time it was just when he got cast in the role, and they spoke a little bit after that. So that's like my only real connection.
Well, those who have never seen it, I actually love Attack of the Hood. his one
Oh,
of
Attack on the Block.
Attack
Yeah,
on the Block, his one of his previous movies before Star Wars. Yeah, that one's a fun movie to watch.
and I also shared an airplane once with Jimmy Smith, who played Senator
That's
Organa.
right.
Organa, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I couldn't talk to him. It was like early in the morning. He didn't want to be bothered.
yeah. A lot of people don't want to be bothered in
Yeah.
airports.
Wrestling fans, take note.
Yes, please, God, please.
I know we didn't talk much about Solo, but again,
Is there a lot to talk about when it comes to Solo?
there's not much.
And look, if there's anything that I can say is maybe a little bit of a black mark on this current Star Wars franchise, it's maybe Solo.
Uh,
I don't dislike the movie. Don't get me wrong.
It's average.
yeah,
It's
like
good.
it's a movie that didn't need to be made.
Yeah.
Like it would have been fine if we didn't know his backstory, I guess.
Or it would have been fine if it was a Disney Plus TV series.
Yeah,
You know?
I just rewatched it though, and I totally forgot that Darth Maul comes back.
Yeah.
Like I totally forgot about
Yeah.
that part. And what's the girl's name?
With the girl from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I forget her name in the
Tells you
movie.
everything you need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forget her name in the movie,
Yeah.
but like that part was pretty cool, like her backstory, and Woody Harrelson was kind of like the original version of what Han Solo becomes in
Right.
a
Right.
way,
Right.
you know.
And it was a good movie, but I mean, we were talking
Like
about,
you said, like it doesn't. It's just an okay movie.
right. But and again, you want to talk about merchandise? That's merchandise that didn't move.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
Donald Glover was the best thing about
Oh,
it.
Well,
Yeah.
they do have representation though in the Black series.
Yes.
Those characters.
But it's like I don't think a lot of people cared that much until I really think that was the selling point for me on that movie more than anything else. I was like, okay, Solo story. All right, I'm gonna go see it. It's a Star Wars film. Cool. Then all of a sudden it's like Lando Calrissian will be played by Donald Glover. And
That's
I'm
that. That's
Yeah.
what got me.
yeah,
Yeah.
I remember seeing like the trailer, and I'm already a big Donald Glover fan. Like I love Childish Gambino and like
It's-
Community and all that stuff he did before Star Wars.
if you've seen Donald Glover in anything, it's hard to not be a huge fan of Donald Glover.
100%. But I remember there's a scene in the trailer where you see him just standing there looking cool as fuck, and you see
I
the
know.
light. You see the
Yep.
light because I think the droid is welding something
Yeah.
in the movie, but you see just the blue light flashing off him. He
Yeah.
just looks cool as fuck. Like Lando Calrissian was already cool as fuck. Now you got a younger version. Like it's awesome.
And I thought it was a nice touch with Billy D. Williams wearing the same outfit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Skywalker.
I love that. I love that.
I have the two Funko Pops of the Donald Glover version of Lando, like the one he wears at the end of Solo, the Hawaiian shirt kind of thing he's got.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I think for me that came out of Solo more than anything else was that casting wise, everybody was seemingly like upset with everybody they casted except for originally Woody Harrelson. But the second Donald Glover got announced, it all was right in the world.
Yeah, I
when it
was
came to
always
that.
like, I'm not crazy about the Han Solo guy, but
But
I'm fine with Glover.
But the guy that played him kind of looked like he could be a young Harrison Ford. No,
yeah.
I even feel like
there were better choices. That's
well,
what
I
I'm
feel,
saying.
but I even kind of feel like Adam Driver kind of looks like a young Harrison Ford sometimes.
I think Adam Driver looks like Han Solo in the animated segment of the holiday special.
That's-
Yeah.
The
That's
same
fair.
identical face.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But even like spoiler, or even in the new movie when they have the conversation on the ship or whatever,
They look like father
they
and
look
son.
like
Oh, yeah,
they
that's
look
one of my
alike.
favorite scenes.
Yeah.
I feel like the casting was right in that aspect of it.
Yeah, I don't know if Alden Ehrenreich did the greatest job as Han Solo. I don't know if maybe there
No,
were
but
better choices.
like
but
who's as
who's-
cool as Harrison Ford?
Exactly. Who's
Yeah.
living up to that expectation? You're trying to live into the shadow of a character. First of all, if you want to talk about the most loved character in Star Wars history, Han Solo is probably number one. Everybody talks about how much the Force and lightsabers and all this, and the guy that everybody relates to is just a guy, a scruffy bounty hunter who just is like, all right, fine, here we go. I guess I'll help you guys out.
I mean, if he's not in the movie, Luke dies. If he doesn't cut open the tauntaun,
Exactly.
like he dies of hypothermia or whatever on Hoth. Like if Han doesn't show up,
Right. And that's the
he
thing.
plays a big role whether he's a Jedi or not.
Right, and it's a hard thing to go back and now say, all right, somebody else do that. So it's difficult. But I mean, when we talk about merchandising, I feel like that's maybe where we hit a little bit of a snag
Mhm.
because Solo didn't do as well in the theaters as everybody thought it was going to do. It got a lot more of a negative reaction than a lot of people, I think, thought it was going to. I mean, look, there were massive reshoots on that film too.
Oh yeah.
Changes in scripts, different things, and there were things like you said, the Darth Maul ending and stuff like that that a lot of
That
people
was one
liked.
of the first things that I heard about from like when spoilers started coming out. Like I hadn't seen the movie yet, but people were saying, "Oh, Darth Maul comes back at the end."
Right,
But you're never gonna please everybody.
and you can't.
Everybody has a different outlook on. Andre's a filmmaker. He has a certain outlook on things. I feel like me and Albert on the Star Wars stuff. I feel like we're in simpatico right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, I
Like
would
we
say so.
agree on a lot of the stuff. But somebody who's a child might look at it a different way too.
Right, and there are kids that are now growing up, and the Star Wars that they know are these three films,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and the introduction that they have to Han Solo and to
they don't know
Luke
how
Skywalker.
important it is to show Leia training as a kid with Luke, and well, not a kid, but like
Right, a young adult.
yeah, adolescent, whatever you want to call it. But like they don't know how important that is
That scene
in
gave me
terms of
goosebumps.
Rey,
Right.
Yeah,
coming to.
and that's the thing. This is the end of we're now talking about just toy line wise, movie wise. This is the end of the Skywalker saga.
Yep.
This is it. We're
Uh,
not going to see.
unless somebody throws a fat check at somebody
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean,
down the line.
right. I mean, there's no, never say never. But as of right now, this is what we're getting. This is the end of the Skywalker saga. Star Wars is never going to end. They'll go to a
No.
different end of the galaxy and pull out characters and make a brand new story, and that's fine. But this is the end of this saga. So this is look, I'm not ashamed to say it. I've been with my girlfriend for a little over 2 years. Going to see this last movie is the first time she's seen me cry. When Princess Leia died, I couldn't hold it back. That was it.
It broke me when Chewie starts growling when
That
that
killed
that
me.
got me. Like tears started coming out of my eyes when that happened.
Well,
And
there
But
was one moment with Chewbacca where if it was
when he
permanent,
got the medal,
well, something else where I almost would have walked out of the theater if
oh,
the early part of it.
yeah.
So Tamara turned to me and went, "No," and I went, "Holy no! Wait, that can't
Yeah,
be."
like
Yeah, I was like, "Wait,
yeah,
no, no, no,
that
no, no,
that
no."
that that part's pretty. That part was pretty crazy.
I literally, I was like gonna be like that person in the theater.
Yeah,
I was gonna be like, "No!"
my heart sunk when I saw that.
Because that's it. That's your live. Because we knew. Look, I knew Leia was gonna die in the film. Like, there's just no spoiler it again. Sorry, guys, but that's our last connection. Chewie's it. Like that.
Well,
Everybody's gone basically.
well, we almost lost somebody else in a way too because of C-3PO.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, luckily it turned out the way I had hoped it would. But spoiler alert. So C3PO can't translate Sith. Um, and Babu Frick is the one that
My
is
boy.
able to reprogram him to translate, but if he translates it, he loses all of his memories. All these adventures that have been going on for like 40 something years now. And luckily, R2D2 had the backup data to make sure he didn't forget all these great adventures.
Right, and that would have been you're right, like the death of another major 6 movie
Yeah,
long
we like
trilogy.
we lost all the
9 movie.
we
Sorry.
lost the main human characters, but all these Borgs and Wookiees, like they're still around. And like I jumped in when you were talking, Andre, but when Chewie finally gets his medal,
hmm
you know, from from a callback to the original
Yeah,
Yep.
movie.
yeah, which was a huge deal, and
know,
I think that was a big thing that was lost on a lot of people.
yeah,
Like seeing that, I was like, damn, that punched you right in the feels.
yeah, like it hit you right in the feels for sure.
And I'm again not ashamed to say it. I cried twice during that movie, and it just I knew it was over. So right before that scene where they all got back,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I just incontrollably just started like I think there was something inside of me that was like, this is it.
Even
This is
when
the
even
last we're ever gonna see like this celebration. Like it
yeah,
was such a callback to A New Hope when Luke coming back and stuff like that.
Mhm.
It just there was just so much there, and I was like, this is the end of my like a part of my childhood is over after I
Yeah.
walk out of this movie theater.
Honestly, though, because like I avoid trailers at all costs anyway, so it wasn't spoiled for me about what the main plot was gonna be of this movie. So spoiler alert right now. So Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter, and she's like all powerful. You know, now we know why she's so powerful. But what really almost got me, I always had a feeling that the Rise of Skywalker meant Rey was gonna take on the name.
Right.
That choked me up
Yeah.
when she goes back to Tatooine to Luke's old house and buries Luke and Leia's sabers, and you see their Force ghost looking at her,
Yeah.
and you see some random old lady like, "What's your name?" And she's like, "Rey," and he's like, "Rey what?" "Rey Skywalker." That kind of got me choked up too.
And then just that scene with the the two sons in the back and her
Yeah,
BB-8, just
yeah.
that callback. I
It's
was like,
like a lot of the movies have like a callbacks to the old stuff, and you know everybody like our age loves nostalgia. Like
sure.
so,
I have a different reaction, but
go
again, this
ahead,
is not
no, give it. No, give it.
this is not first.
We're not debating. We're not debating. You're allowed to have an opinion,
Yeah.
Andre. It's okay.
Well, this
Go
is all
ahead.
I'm gonna say. I didn't hate the Rise of Skywalker. I actually liked it a little bit more than the Last Jedi, but I also felt it was a lot of patchwork in that film, just based on stuff that I've read, stuff that I've heard, and I did think the third act was kind of clunky.
I
Even
see.
and listen, I was there with my Vendetta Games actor Chris, and I was there with his brother and his kids. We all had the same reaction with how that movie ended, and it wasn't a happy ending for
I
us.
mean, if anything, it kind of leaves me wanting more now that she takes up the mantle of Skywalker.
Right.
I also have a little bit more questions as to how exactly she has a yellow lightsaber. Because, like I said before, I had never watched the Clone Wars cartoon, but from what I understand, is the Jedi Centurions that guard the Jedi Temple are the only ones that have a yellow saber. The only thing I could think of was that she took the kyber crystals out of Luke and Leia's sabers and
And put them together.
put them in
Yeah.
hers. But that's the only question I really had, and like it left me wanting a little more. Like this is the rise of Skywalker, but it's also the end of the Skywalker saga. But like, what happens to her now?
Right. Well, the other question I had too was how Maskanata got the lightsaber in the beginning too, in the first movie. They never answered that, and that bothered me a little bit. But I gotta ask you because now we're gonna get into it. What didn't you like?
I didn't like the Rey Skywalker thing. I didn't like Rey and Kylo hooking up at his death. I think Kylo should have survived and Rey should have died.
I completely
What? Why?
disagree with
Why?
that.
Why didn't you like the Rey Skywalker thing?
Because technically Palpatine won. He took over the Skywalker family, and
Palpatine wanted her to kill him so he could transfer himself into her.
Right. So she can become the
So,
Sith.
I don't think I don't think he won at all.
Yeah. I don't. I'm
We're
not.
not. We're not arguing.
Yeah.
We're
yeah,
not
no,
I'm
no,
not
arguing.
no.
We're
following.
not
I'm kind of
arguing.
not following your logic to be is I think my way of seeing it because
There's a lot of undoing of that original trilogy now because of these films.
in what way?
You just have to watch them all just to figure it out.
Dude, I've
Do you think
seen them a billion
do
times.
you think your mindset would be different if you weren't a filmmaker yourself?
It probably would, but also I'm 36 years old, so obviously I look at this differently than I did when I was 12 and 13. And I think if I was that age, I would just be, oh yeah, no, that's great, that's cool. I follow it as is, but as an adult, it's like,
I think my thing is that I just let the series take me over. Like
Thank you.
I feel like I'm a grown man, but I'm a child at heart.
Yeah.
And you know, not that your opinion is wrong. None of our opinions are wrong. Our opinions are our opinions. We're entitled to that. Everybody's gonna have a different one. But you know, maybe it's just I don't go into it looking for any expectations. I don't really look at the logic of it. It's still you're in space and there's a war, you know.
Yeah.
It's a star war. But, you know, I just enjoy it for what it is. Like people hate The Last Jedi. It's one of my favorites actually, maybe number 2. I did like the whole old man. Like Luke's probably my favorite character of the whole series. I just felt like, you know, I don't know. I don't know what it is that where people started getting so negative about this
but
stuff.
you know what? Like the conversation we're having right now, I think is the more acceptable way to kind of go about it versus when you go on Twitter. and everybody's fighting
You
No,
over,
no, no, and that's ridiculous. You know,
don't. We're not over talking
yeah,
each
we're
other. We're not bashing you. You
right.
know.
I honestly, I just want like my question was generally just because I wanted to know where you were coming from because I thought that it was fitting and I
I'm.
thought that
I'm not
it
gonna tell you you're
it
wrong.
made sense. But I'm interested in seeing what your opinion was on it because I like knowing where that comes from.
Anytime that I do a podcast with you, I always think that you have a different outlook because of your background.
well, it's just also the fact that the way the original trilogy ended, every character pretty much grew from where they began, right? So Luke became a Jedi Knight. He knew what his destiny was going to be. Han was no longer a smuggler. Like he was willing to make the sacrifice for the good of the team, and he and Leia were in love with each other. So like everybody kind of matured. They were in this place. They defeated the Empire, and then we jumped 30 years later to the Force Awakens, and I know there are all these books that fill in the gaps, but it makes no sense to me that Han would just run away and go back to the smuggler life, and Luke would decide, when Kylo turns and wipes out. First of all, I still want to know, and I'm going to try to wrap up with a certain question that hopefully they'll do if they ever continue the series. Um, I just don't see like Luke running away so easily and shutting himself off from the Force. But here's the thing: I could also see from the other perspective of them trying to relate it to real times, where you had in the '60s, you had the young generation that thought they could change the world. They could push back against the establishment because the establishment was getting it wrong in America, and things were going to hell, and we got to do the right thing. But now those young people end up becoming the establishment, and they
Right,
become jaded, and they become very much like lacking hope. And I
right.
think that's where Luke was. That's the intent that they were trying to do, that Luke lost his faith because he could not train the Jedi Knights and bring them back.
Right. I respected the idea that that was the case. I wasn't. I'm not gonna say I was overly happy about Force Awakens when Luke was in the last 3 seconds of it, and that was the only thing, and we didn't get any answers. But I was patient enough to know, okay, there's gonna be a second movie. Let's see where this goes from here on out. And we now got what we got, and I love like I think the hardest I've ever laughed it was just the second film where Luke just grabs the lightsaber and tosses it over his shoulder. I was like, this is great. Like now let's get this curmudgeonly old man who's now set in his ways back to where he needs to be. And that's the thing. That was his character growing. That was his redemption story. And the Rise of Skywalker to me is like the undertag of it. It should be Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker: The Redemption of Ben Solo, because that's what that movie was. It was Ben Solo's redemption. We saw Luke cut himself off from the Force because of Ben Solo, because of his attachment to the dark side, because of his want to be like Darth Vader. We see all that, but then we see the helmet shatter, and now we see his his mom finally be able to get through to him, and we see him see the force like the quote unquote Force ghost of his dad, and now it's the redemption story of Ben Solo. I think that you want to talk about characters growth. This the Rise of Skywalker was character growth for everybody. It was character growth for Finn, for Poe. It was Rey. I mean, every character had their arc. Chewie getting the medal at the end was the arc for him. BB-8 having like a new like secondary buddy. Like
Yeah.
even BB-8 grew. Getting back to C-3PO and R2-D2 being best friends. Like the whole.
The almost losing C-3PO.
And how sad was it when he was like,
Babu Frick's my oldest friend.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
how sad was it when R2-D2 sees C-3PO and he's like,
Yeah.
what do you mean you're my oldest friend? I would remember you
Yeah.
if that was the
Yeah.
case. And just the beeps and the whirs of R2-D2, you're like, I don't know what he's saying, but damn, that dude's sad.
Yeah, I always felt that Ben Solo was gonna get his redemption. I just want to read something real quick because this person worded it a lot better than I did when I was having a little debate with my friend about the Last Jedi. So I'm just gonna read this. It's not my words, but I kind of agree with this outtake on it. Okay. There's been a lot of discussion over Luke's actions in the flashbacks, with some believing his consideration of killing Ben is to be out of character. I don't think it's that far beyond how Luke is presented in the original trilogy. Initially, he's all for killing Vader to avenge his aunt and uncle, Obi-Wan and his father, When Vader reveals he's Luke's father, it allows him to look beyond the monster in a mask and see the human underneath. Even Obi-Wan and Yoda urged him to face and strike Vader down in order to become a Jedi Knight, but Luke's instincts told him different. For me, that's the key. Luke has always trusted his instincts. He did so to destroy the Death Star, and he does again to face Vader on Bespin rather than complete his training. That one was a mistake in the short term, but it allowed him to realize the truth and ultimately redeem Vader. In Return of the Jedi, Obi-Wan even tells him, "Your insight serves you well." Luke's insight into the truth of Vader helps return Anakin to the light and defeat the Emperor. His insight has served him well at every major decision. Then comes Ben, his own nephew, except when Luke looks at him through the Force, using his feelings, his insight, he sees only darkness. Now Luke's trusted instincts are telling him to strike Ben down for the good of the future, in the same way his damaging trip to Bespin was ultimately a good thing, and to ignore the advice of his Jedi masters and reach out to Vader was a good thing. Luke, of course, realizes that mistake, and his instincts have been clouded, but by then it's too late. I'd argue that Luke in the flashback does what Luke has always done as a hero to the rebellion and a Jedi Knight. He trusts his instincts, and they led him wrong, hence retreating into exile, unable to trust his insights anymore, and in an emotional crisis.
He really thought that shit out, didn't he?
Well, he worded it much better than I did, but I kind of felt the same way that this guy did.
Yeah, and I kind of got that too. I think that a lot of that at the end of I saw that a lot in Rey at the end of Rise of Skywalker. The the turmoil, like the I want to like not. It was less of at the end of I want to redeem Ben as I got to kill him, and then she realizes the mistake she makes when she actually does it, and that to me was very Luke Skywalker esque. It was the idea of yeah, I have a certain way of thinking. People are telling me to do this, but I'm going to trust my gut. And she trusted her gut and then realized, all right, that this isn't right. He's not, he sees who he is now. He knows what his mistakes are. Let's heal him. Let's bring him back to where he needs to be. And that was the redemption of Ben Solo. And to me, Kylo Ren died that moment, and he's now like I'll refer to him probably going on as Ben Solo more than I will Kylo Ren, because that's how it's supposed to be. It's the same thing as you talk about Darth Vader. Like to me, at the end, he's Anakin Skywalker.
100%.
You know,
A Jedi like my father before me.
exactly.
I feel like there's like so much more we could talk about, but I think we would have to do another episode.
Can I just say something before we wrap
Yeah.
this up? So there's another callback. It kind of, I guess, goes under the radar. But if you remember in, was it Empire or Return? When he's training with Yoda, that's Empire Strikes
Empire
Back.
Strikes
Yeah.
Back.
When they're in Dagobah and they lift the X-wing out of the swamp.
Yes.
Yeah,
They do the
and then they do
same
it again.
thing in
He
this
gets to do
movie.
it as a
Yeah.
Force Ghost.
I'm gonna be honest that like seeing her in that helmet,
That
in
was
his
pretty
helmet,
cool.
and like flying that X-wing, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever.
See now, like we were talking about before. I hope that they make a Ray Funko Pop with the X-wing helmet.
Yes,
I'm sure that's coming.
Yeah,
But-
I hope so.
and remember, like she had that. That was what she was wearing in the first one, where she's got like this stupid helmet that she's putting on when she's going to eat that
Yeah.
really weird growing bread.
Right.
But I think that for me is where I accepted her saying, "I'm Rey Skywalker." That was the point where Luke said, "You're one of us."
Yeah.
Like you want to take a last name because you don't have one to take because your last name holds that negative of a connotation. You're a Skywalker now.
If Finn has a last name, it's probably Solo.
Yeah, I would say so.
He's even though Poe is more portrayed like the Han Solo of the new trilogy. I feel like Finn plays just as big of a role. Yeah.
So now that the Skywalker trilogy, well, the whole saga is over, but we know we're going to get more of the streaming shows. We're getting another Mandalorian
Right.
season,
Obi-Wan.
Right.
Cassian Andor,
Possibly a Darth Vader series.
right?
The Obi-Wan series is the one that I can't wait for.
And obviously, there's plans for another trilogy, but we don't know the details on that yet.
Right, we're
But-
not going to see any of these characters
There can
return.
be no preconceived notions either.
Yeah, which is great.
They're all new characters.
But
Yep.
just going around, what would you want to see them do going forward?
Um, so I think we kind of touched a little bit on it before. I'd like to see like a TV series that does delve into different parts of the lore that we've missed. I like the Knights of the Old Republic TV series. For me, great idea. And I don't care if that's not canon or not. It could be a side part of it, and maybe it doesn't have to. It doesn't. We don't have to introduce those characters in films or throw them back into where they were. I just like to see a different Star Wars story. And I'm looking forward to a new trilogy where we're not going to see any of these characters again because now we get to a brand new Star Wars saga for a brand new generation with brand new characters. That's great for me. But as far as the older stuff, I think what they've announced now, I think they're doing everything right. I think it's great that they canceled the Yoda movie. I think it's great that instead of doing that, they've introduced this newer Yoda character into the Mandalorian.
Hmm.
I think that it's a great idea that we're going to get an Obi-Wan backstory. I think it's good that we're going to get to, I'm not too crazy about the whole Darth Vader thing because I don't want to see his turn, like his descent into darkness. I like to see that, I like what we have portrayed. Like we saw his descent. I don't need to see him being a heel the entire time.
Right.
Let him be, let him be the heel for the two movies and have his baby face there at the end. Great, like that's fine for me. But yeah, Obi Wan is a character I definitely want to dig more into, and I do want to see more into Darth Maul's character. So that's what I kind of
That'd
want.
be pretty cool.
Yeah,
What about you, Jesse?
I mean, I like the route that they're going with the content Disney Plus is going to be putting out that's already been announced. Um, I don't know, like, see, because Rogue One is such a highly praised movie, but we knew what was going to happen after it.
right.
So it was like a fill in between. But what if they did just have a one off movie instead of a trilogy? Um, digging deeper into this whole rabbit hole that of Star Wars and the universe, like with the video, like you got the video game now, the Jedi Fallen Order
Hmm.
that people are going crazy about, and it's considered canon. Not that canon necessarily makes it better. Like I love Dragon Ball Z, and Broly's one of my favorite characters, and I don't give a shit if he's canon or not. Like I
He's
love,
still gonna be your favorite character.
yeah,
Yeah, Disney
well,
universe.
Vegeta's my favorite character, but like he's one of my favorite characters. But like they could do a movie of Jedi Fallen Order with what's his name, the kid from Shameless,
Right.
Cameron Monaghan.
Yeah.
Make a film out of that. Let it just be a one off. But if they do make a trilogy again, as long as they have a fun story and fun characters, I'm just gonna go in there with an open mind and have a good time. You know, hopefully I could go see it with my family and we can all love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me personally, the rumor about Knights of the Old Republic, I would definitely would like to see,
Yeah.
just to see like the very beginnings of the Jedi
Right.
pre Phantom Menace, because I feel like there's something of a missing gap. It could be like a year one type of
I
deal.
really want a Darth Revan, whether it's a series or a
Yeah.
movie. I want to know more about this character, like on film.
Yeah, I
I want to see it play out, like not just read it.
as I mentioned before, I'd love to see a Shadows of the Empire, like
Right.
an animated movie or something, or even a Dash Rendar movie could be kind of cool
I'm
if
definitely
they could
down with that.
get the rights to use him.
Who
And
who would you have playing?
I used to think
Ooh.
Clive Owen, but
Ooh.
I don't know anymore because he's getting up there,
Yeah.
getting
But
older.
that's a good. I mean, it's a good choice.
Maybe Gerard Butler.
Actually, not to cut you off, but when you asked me what I would like to see, they kind of hint at it anyway. But Lando and this new girl
Yeah, I
that
wanted to bring that
that
up.
that that they kind of hint that might be his daughter, maybe not. Who knows?
When I saw the movie, it
I
was
wouldn't
awkward to me.
I wouldn't
I thought he
mind.
was hitting on her.
No.
That's just because Lando
Is
is oozes
yeah.
sexuality.
Yeah.
Just give
I
Leia my
mean, the
love.
Donald Glover version, they kind of say was doing the robot. So,
Yeah.
so whatever. But
Yeah,
I would like to see if that really is his daughter, and maybe that's the story, the continuation of the quote unquote Skywalker saga. That this is the new Calrissian, this girl. She finally gets an identity, sort of like how Finn never has an identity, but then he finds this whole world full of former stormtroopers.
yeah.
Now she'll have an identity.
I would like a standalone Lando with Donald
Well,
Glover.
plus they I would love that.
Oh yeah,
But
absolutely.
but also, you see a lot of Lando and Chewie in the Falcon
Yeah.
again. Maybe they'll have an adventure.
And then the one other idea that I had, and I was alluding to this, I really would like to know who were the other Jedi Knights that Luke was training before they were killed.
Yeah, I'm
So,
interested in that too.
so some kind of like backstory before the events of what happened in
Well,
Last Jedi.
that comes the whole thing of what's canon and what's not, because like there are a lot of novels and stuff that have, these Jedi Knights, are those the ones? We don't know.
Right, comics and stuff like that might
Yeah.
fill it in. But yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people don't accept it unless it's on a screen somewhere.
So yeah, guys, we're definitely going to come back to this at some point in the near future. Maybe when there's more streaming shows, or
Yeah,
because there's going to always be topics. I don't think there's any toys we wish they would have made because they've made everything.
yeah.
So
I do have to say this though. I mean, I think you kind of just hit on it a little bit. I want an episode 0. And that's something I've wanted ever since they announced episode 7 was going to come out and it was going to be a continuation of that story.
well, that's why I think Knights of the Old Republic would come in.
Right, and that's what I want. Like I want to know where Qui Gon Jinn. I want to see Qui Gon Jinn being trained by Yoda.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like I want to see I want to see Dooku's turn. Like there's so many things that they're alluded to.
I think we could pretty much agree that all these novels and books that have come out, we want to see on film.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Like all these stories, whether they're canon or not.
All the Timothy Zahn books.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just like that whole thing. Like when Obi-Wan winds up going on the planet, that planet where he meets Jango Fett.
Oh, Geonosis.
Yeah, and they're like, oh my god, the name was just in my head now and I lost it. Cypher Diaz. Who the hell is that?
Mm-hmm.
I want to know. You know what I mean? Like, let's get like I like fill-in stuff. Like, I would like to see, like you said, a solo, like a standalone story. Give me something with Lando Calrissian in it. What how did he get to this point? Like, I want to see like little things. If you want to do a TV series or an animated series or even just a full-blown film, fill in those gaps for me.
If they do a solo Lando movie, it would probably end up being how he impregnates that girl's mother,
Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
that too.
and that would be the canon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So that's pretty much it for today. And Albert, you want to plug your stuff?
Always want to plug my stuff. You can find me on YouTube. It's the Slam Sessions Network. Like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it.
Jesse?
It's just a fun for me to do the podcast, but I do have a little YouTube show and Facebook show, Cheap Pop Culture. You could just search it. I'm Shaolin Sane at all my social media.
Yes, and as always, you could like us on Facebook, the Silver Screen Action Figure Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at SilverScreenAF1. If you want to email us with comments, suggestions, or even hate messages if you'd like, because I know not everybody's going to be a fan of our opinions, email us at the SilverScreenAF Podcast at gmail.com.
And you can hate me on Twitter anytime at Kid Justice.
You can hate me at Shaolin Sane, and I won't care.
Yeah, same here. Send me your hate mail. It's fine for me.
Yes, and on that note, the Force will be with you always.